So how about we review Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor 2025, the big Ring of Honor show that pay-per-view even that happened on August 29, 2025 from the 2300 Arena place there in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, continuing the this idea of AEW and all their affiliated brands doing a residency there. A show that I thought was great. I thought it was a really, really good wrestling show. I would go as far as to say that it was great. I thought it was really good. It's a crazy thing, but it felt like a New Japan show in structure and how things progressed, like from the mid card all the way, the lower card all the way to the top of the card. Like it really felt like one of these really excellent New Japan shows. And I was, at the end, I'm like, why isn't New Japan booking like this? Like, this is exactly what they should be doing. This is what they're best at. That's what they actually are excellent at doing is putting these shows together in this format with just like great stuff. I don't know. But look, that was the beat that I got after. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to break down this show. I'm going to be mostly positive. I did say mostly. And, not that this show is completely exempt from critique, because it is not. But, is it an all-time great show? Well, I wouldn't say one of those, but I would definitely say that it's a great show, and it's one that overall, you could use. There's much worse ways to spend your time than watching, than sitting down to watch this show here. And things that I was not expecting to connected in surprising ways. Like, it was a very good show. And, there were about 901 people, according to WrestleTix, who were in the building to watch the proceedings and, be entertained as I was. This I don't think is the final count. It means that there was about like a dozen, what is it? I think it's like 916 tickets, right? 916 spots in the 2300 for this AEW residency that are available on every show, right? So it means what, 15 tickets were left. There's a very fair chance that the show ended up being sold out by the end. This is not the final count that we're getting from WrestleTix, but just as a quick side note, I guess, and there's really not much point in spending too much time on this, but the fact that a Ring of Honor show was not able to instantly sell out the 916 available tickets, not only a Ring of Honor show, but a Ring of Honor pay-per-view, I think that's a testament to how bad the brand is as far as fan perception goes. Dynamite had sold out, and I think the next few Dynamites are sold out, right? Those are clean. I think there might be a Collision, or I think not the Collision. I'm recording this on the Saturday on the 30th, so I'm not the Collision tonight, but I think the two others still have tickets. I could be mistaken at this point, but don't take my word for it. The point being is that the AEW stuff, particularly Dynamite, is filling the place out beforehand. The Dynamites are filling out beforehand. Whereas in this case here, as far as Ring of Honor, it's wild that even the day of the show, during the last count before the show, not the final count, but the last count that WrestleTix did before the show actually started, they hadn't filled out the building yet, and that to me is, I think. Again, I don't want to harp on this too much, but I do think it is an indicator. I do think it is an indicator of where the standing of the brand is right now in the minds of pro wrestling fans. And imagine if they had done a bigger building, like they would have struggled. Let's say they would have done a 3,000 seat arena. They would have struggled to put 900 people into this building or into that building. You see what I'm trying to get at here? Again, I don't want to harp too much on it, but I do want to point it out because I will be hearkening back to this during the review, not the attendance specifically, but this point. The point that I'm trying to make here is that Ring of Honor right now is a brand that does not have any connection with wrestling fans right now. It is, it's not a dead brand by any means, but it is a brand that is struggling because it doesn't have any exposure, because being behind the paywall of Honor Club at $10 a month is just not doing it for them. Look, we know for a fact that Tony Khan was hoping to get a deal years ago and it didn't shake out, and he's still hanging on, like he hasn't given up. And he even said on the presser, not the presser, but the call that the media call that he took that he did before Ring of Honor, he said, right? He outright said, "Look, we have received offers, but none of them make sense." That's what he said, essentially, right? I'm paraphrasing, but I do think he used the words, "none of them make sense for what we want to do," and specifically turned everything back to say, that he would like to continue to work with Warner Bros. Discovery. So I think there is a part of him that wants to, maintain really great relationship with his current media partners. I think that's clear, but the other part is, where he says we've received offers and he's declining them. Well, they're probably not up to par, right? Because I've seen people say, well, what the fuck, Tony, just take the money, right? Just take the money. Try to make Ring of Honor profitable now. Just take whatever you can get. But what if the deal is some fucking nonsense where you end up, it's a deal for $1 million a year on the Pursuit channel? Is the Pursuit channel still a thing? I don't even know. But that's the idea. Like, what's the point? Or on Pop, I know Pop's not around anymore. At least I know that. But that's the idea. That's the thing. Is like, why would you go and do that? And especially if part of your strategy is to continue to be in good graces with your partner, would you risk chipping away at that relationship by accepting a shit deal somewhere else on a shit network just to make some money? Like, I can respect that decision as well. Clearly, he's looking for the best deal. And then at the same time, let's not forget, like, if you accept the shit deal on a shit network, well, then you are removing leverage from yourself to go renegotiate elsewhere, right? Because then your shit deal is going to speak for your brand as being, well, you have a shit brand if we're on the Pursuit network at $1 million a year. Again, I'm just throwing numbers out there. I'm not saying this happened. I just want to be very, very clear. We're just shit talking here a little bit, just talking through our hats. But there's clearly things that Tony wants out of the Ring of Honor, a future Ring of Honor deal, that he hasn't received yet. And maybe this is also part of why this shockwave thing never panned out, right? Maybe out of loyalty to Warner Bros, right? So I don't know. Like and yes, you could. I think it's a valid question also to put forward and say, is this is loyalty is this loyalty misplaced, right? Is this misplaced? Because look, the media landscape in the United States is absolutely bonkers, right? Like as soon as one media merger ends, there's another one that happens. And then when the other one happens, then there's another one who says, I'd be interested in purchasing this new media merger. Like it's crazy. Like I would not have the stomach to wade into these waters. It's so volatile and high level shit and so much money, I would not have the balls to navigate these waters. So cheers on anyone who does, especially on that level when it comes to live, live media deals, like live sports, cheers to them, because it's a fucking cutthroat. It's a fucking cutthroat business. It's insane the amount of money that gets thrown around. Just again, think about the deals. Think about I was about to say, think about WWE's deal, with ESPN just for the PLEs, right? Think of UFC and their insane deal with Paramount. But I mean, look at the deal that AEW got with Warner Bros. That's a lot of money. It's all a lot of money. I don't have the cojones to run around in those circles. I gotta be. You don't want. Look, if you want to hire me, you shouldn't though. But if you want to hire me for your wrestling promotion, but again, I want to underscore, you shouldn't. But if you wanted to hire me for your wrestling promotion, do not hire me specifically to go out and work media deals. I will crumble. I will come to pieces. You'll be picking me up in a baggie the next day that I go to one of these meetings, and you'll be saying, "Here remains what's left of Warren Hayes." Talk about this show. We're gonna do the usual thing that I like to do, where it's start from the top of from the main event and then work our way down. Although there are circumstances that, look, we might be wibbly wobbly in our structure here, but who gives a fuck, right? Who cares? Who cares if we're wibbly wobbly here? But let's go right ahead with the match that main evented the women's world championship. Champion Athena, of course, successfully retained her title in a very, very decisive win over Mina Shirakawa. No nonsense, no chicanery, no trickery. Just a straight up finish where we get a straight jacket power bomb, Liger bomb type of situation, which was awesome. And then the O face, you couldn't get a cleaner win, and that was the way to go, quite honestly. Now, I previewed this on stream earlier this week. And I think my prediction came to pass. This is a match that was good. I think it was a very good match on top of that, but I think is extremely overrated by a lot of fans, because I think we perceive both of these women to be better wrestlers than what they are in reality. And I have to temper this, because I got into a pretty heated argument with my lovely fiance, Kristen, when we started talking about Athena. I talked about it on stream, and this is kind of what brought it up. She brought it up while we were watching the main event, talking about what I talked about on stream. And if you didn't watch the stream, let me sort of wrap it up for you. Athena is a very good pro wrestler. I think she's a very, very good pro wrestler. But I don't think she is the sure thing that a lot of people make her out to be. I don't think she is this tippy top tier pro wrestler that a lot of wrestling fans make her out to be. And I think a lot of wrestling fans make her out to be this tippy top wrestler because of her title reign in Ring of Honor. And suddenly she's this, she's like this sky high, untouchable top 3 in the world pro wrestler, which I legitimately believe she is not. I don't even think she's top 3 in North America. She's a top 10 wrestler. I won't argue that with you. I think she's absolutely a top 10. You want to make an argument for a top 5? I'd even have to think about it. Would I put her in my top 5? Maybe. I haven't put the brain power behind it, to really break it down and think about it. Who's my top? She probably would be a top 5. Top 3? Top 3, I'm not so sure. And there's reasons for that. There's reasons that I think she's I think she loses focus quite a bit in her matches, where she tries to emote too much. She tries to do too much character. I think sometimes she does things and it comes across as a little goofy, as a little corny. And I think it takes away overall from her presentation. And I posited, I said, look, if and I understand, and look, it's like Kenny Omega to a degree, right? Where it's like Kenny Omega is a dork as well. Like, and I think you have to be completely blind to be offended by that. Like Kenny Omega is a grade A dork, and that's part of his charm. Just like Athena is a grade A dork, and that's part of her charm as well. The thing is that Kenny is able to temper that and change, and not let it take over his entire persona, particularly when he's wrestling. And Athena, unfortunately, never quite leaves that behind. Doesn't quite know when to bring it back. I think she is a fantastic wrestler. I think she's a wrestler who is capable of being extremely violent, and she holds back for multiple reasons. She doesn't want to hurt the other person. That it's fine. But I think that she has so much to offer. And it's being lost in a sea of just like, goofiness and overreactions and facial expressions and I wish she could just be a killer. Again, on the live stream, I mentioned, she's a big Baldur's Gate 3. Like she's a geek, she's a nerd, she's one of us, or at least one of mine. She's a big Baldur's Gate 3 player. She's, she loves the character Karlach. I'm like, look, if she decided to just like focus on Karlach and be full on Karlach, that would be awesome, right? She came out, she did the Karlach cosplay not that long ago. Well, not that long ago, maybe a year ago, 18 months ago. I can't quite remember what the match was. I was like, hell yeah. It's like yes, this makes sense. So, and the Billy Starks Association, it doesn't help, because Billy's a clown. She does goofball stuff, and it's, there's a level of seriousness that is absent from the ring work. And like I often say, I don't mind. I have a very high tolerance, I should say, to goofiness outside the ring. Unless the goofiness affects the matches, then it starts to chip away with me. That was one of my main problems with MJF during the Brochacho era. It was a problem that I had with Toni Storm for a while when she was particularly when she started the timeless gimmick. And it's a problem that I have with Athena. I'm anything if not consistent on this point. Now, is she a bad wrestler? No. Do I hate Athena? No, I don't hate Athena. I think she's tremendous. The thing is the level with which we attribute this level of importance that doesn't make sense. The level that is given to making Athena be this the God's gift to women's wrestling is preposterous. And it shows because she's, I think this is still the case because in AEW Ring of Honor, because if she was that great a wrestler, I'm talking total package wrestler, right? That could be a cornerstone of a division. Do you think Tony Khan would leave her on the invisible brand that exists only behind a paywall that no one watches to hold a title for 1,000 days in a promotion that no one watches? Or would he have her on his main show doing main show things? Now, yes, over the past, month and a half, she's been on Dynamite. She's been on Collision. She's done through the feud with Toni Storm. She has been there, right? She was, they popped her up for the Owen a few months back, right? And lost immediately in the first round. But the point is that they bring her, they use her, and then she goes back to Ring of Honor. She goes right back. So again, if AEW did believe Tony Khan, let's be honest here. If AEW did believe that she was some kind of game changer, she would not be slumming it in the paywalled promotion. I to me, it's just such basic A to B logic. And somehow most fans will try to take all sorts of twists and turns and try to deviate, between the A and the B. But it's a pretty straight line. And this is not necessarily an indictment on Athena. I just think Athena might be a tad overrated. That's all I'm saying. I think she's a great pro wrestler. I think she's a very, very good pro wrestler. And I can't hammer that home enough. But acting like she's she's the next she's the Crush Gals incarnate, that doesn't make sense to me. And Mina Shirakawa kind of follows that same type of pattern where I think people overshoot quite a bit how good Mina is. I think Mina, again, is a good pro wrestler. I don't think she's as good as Athena, for instance, but I think she's good. I have no issues with Mina Shirakawa. No issues at all. She's a good worker. She's got the whole package down, the presentation, the crowd connection, the big room energy, she's got all of that. But this is also someone that I think is overrated by fans. That being said, I really think this was Mina Shirakawa's best match since transitioning officially over to North America for her pro wrestling career. I'm trying real hard to think of a match in which she was as good and had her working boots on as solidly and worked as smartly as this, and where everything she did mattered and looked good. And I don't want to seem like I'm putting this match down because I thought it was very good. I'm sort of wondering, how, putting a star rating down on him, sort of 3 3/4 or 4. Maybe I'll just go 4. Just go for the 4. I thought it was really good. I thought it was a solid match. That was was physical. They played it smartly, with Mina targeting Athena's knee, and Athena went after Mina's recently healed broken hand, and why wouldn't you go with that? And both girls sold their injuries perfectly throughout the match. And Mina then eventually, we get some good little drama, where it's like spinning back fist in the Mina driver or the glorious driver, I should say. And Athena kicks out of it, But then again, I see some drama. I wasn't on the edge of my seat for this because I was like, there's no way. There's no way Mina is defeating Athena to get to win the title. It's just not happening. This was a bit of a problem for most of the card, to be perfectly honest. Most of the title matches, the singles matches that we had for titles, you were like, well, I already know what the finish is. Hopefully the path to that destination is going to be tremendous because I don't know what else here. But yeah, no, look, I thought this was very good. We've got, we have Athena pulling out the Koji clutch recently, and she transitions into it, very, very smoothly. Again, I shower Athena with praise for her work because I think she's really good at pro wrestling. I think she's a very, very, very good pro wrestler. I have no real issues with the quality of the work. It's the package. It's how she puts it together. It's how the minions shit gets injected into the matches. It's her expressions. It's how she presents herself. Now, again, when I was arguing with Kristen was saying, well, you said on your stream that she acts like a Batman villain, and I don't care. I think it's entertaining. I'm like, there you go. I mean, it all boils down to a question of preference, And what am I doing here? I'm doing a review based on, my likes and dislikes and my own biases regarding pro wrestling. So, I think it's too much. I think it's over the top. That's what, Swerve Strickland used to do. He used to have this Batman villainy type of thing going for him. And the minute he decided to shed that part, the evil mastermind laugh and all that, once he decided to shed that and do something a little more grounded, guess what happened to him? History speaks for itself at this point. So look, I thought this was really good. Let's go with the 4. But I think again, like it's a match that is getting overrated, and unfortunately, I think it's a match that did suffer from going after Bandido versus Hechicero. I think unfortunately, they should have finished the match with the men's title, and this is not a misogynist thing. It was really hard for anyone. It would have been really hard to come back off of that one. And much respect to Athena and Mina. I don't think not only do I don't think they did not hit the highs of the previous match, and I think it made the show feel like it ended on a little bit of a lesser note, even though the match was very good. But if the match previous to this one here, if all they had, if the final sequence of matches was the World Tag Team Championship match and then the women's match and then the pay-per-view ended, no complaints. The pay-per-view ends on a high, on a really solid, really good to great match, and then we're ready to move on, and then we're ready to move on. But I don't know. I don't know. It was I think it was a really weird decision for this to go on last. I don't know. I think the proper progression would have been the Ring of Honor titles, then the women's title, then the men's title. Now that we have 2020 vision, I think that would have been the proper road, because you would have only progressed in quality matches moving on. You had a solid match for the tag team titles. Then you would have had this really good match with Athena and Mina, and then finishing off with Bandido and Hechicero to tear the house down. My review overall for this match is that it was really good, but not as good as some people, as a lot of people, I should say, want you to believe it was. I can't get up there, but it was solid. I enjoyed myself. Was I bored? No. Did I think it was good? Yes, it was really good. But some people want to call this, they want to go really high, but it was solid. It was well put together. It was smartly put together. They wrestled really hard. Both of them wrestled super hard here. Nonsense was at a minimum. So I don't even have to complain. And look, they even had Blue Meanie come out for the introductions. They had Blue Meanie in a Minion in Training t-shirt. They had some b-boys came out. They had some breakdancers. And then just 2 people doing like the most basic b-boy stuff. And I'm like, what is this exactly? Are they wrestlers? Maybe they were wrestlers. I don't know. I don't watch Ring of Honor, so I don't know. And then they brought out Blue Meanie. I gotta say, they being AEW, they didn't lose their time, spend their time here trying to make us, trying to have the ECW arena nostalgia be shoved down our throats, right? Look, we're not done with the overall residency, so we still have time for them to dig out some old ECW folks, right? That's still a possibility, but at least they're not trying to shove it down our throats. At least on this show, you had the Blue Meanie show up, and you're like, oh, okay. But then again, see, here's the other thing. Then the Blue Meanie goes and adds to what I'm talking about when it comes to Athena's presentation. It's like Meanie's a comedy wrestler. He's a comedy act. What are you doing dragging him out for your main event with your top woman and arguably the promotion's top star? What are you doing having him come out to dance with them being, the B-Boys and Billy Starks and Athena. And Athena at first going, what, at first she was like, what the fuck is he doing here, right? She had one of these faces like, what? But then she did one of these, she went, all right. And she started dancing, it's like, no, that is exactly what I mean. That is exactly what I mean when I'm talking about Athena's presentation. Anyway, I spent more than enough time on this topic, but an enjoyable, well-wrestled, fun, dramatic main event that was hampered overall by the fact that there was no doubt in who was going to win, and because of the in-ring limitations of both participants involved. I think those were the two main issues here. So there we go. And look, we're not done talking about Athena, right? But that's all I really want. All I really want out of her is just to focus, streamline her presentation into being a badass. Because if you recall, that's what got her jettisoned off of AEW in the first place. Because she beat down someone so hard during wasn't it on Dark on top of that? She beat down someone so hard on Dark that she got sent to Ring of Honor, probably by, as a punishment. But fans were enamored with it. Fans were like, let her fight. Let her beat the piss out of women. What are we doing here? She's great. That was the thing that brought her to this level to begin with. But now we're doing something completely. Look, anyway, I got to move on. I could do just an hour on this if you wanted, but not today. The Ring of Honor World Championship was also defended. Bandido successfully retained against Hechicero. This was awesome. They went just over 36 minutes, right? When Riccaboni at the end was saying a great 37-minute match, and what that Cage Match says it's 36. What does Cage Match says? 36 28. Riccaboni was saying 37. It's fine, I'm not going to argue for 30 seconds here. But Riccaboni was saying, these two guys went 37 minutes. I'm like, this match went 37 minutes. It felt like 20. It felt like a 20-minute match. I thought it was tremendous. Like, this was really, really top level, big time, excellent shit from both these guys. Incredible setup at first, where they're doing the grappling. Look, it's Hechicero. You're not going to escape that. And Hechicero does it in this way. You know what's the main difference between him and Zack? Okay, Zack Sabre Jr., which is probably our best go-to here. Zack is crisp and precise on everything he does, right? He's just he's methodical. He's mathematical to a fault. Whereas Hechicero has a grittiness to it. Everything he's not as smooth or as calculated or always transitioning into awesome stuff in and out. That's Zack's thing. Hechicero, there's something just a little more grittier. There's something more like, okay, kid, I am about to stretch the hell out of you, and he's just trying to grab you whichever way he can to fucking, make you scream in pain. And that's the kind that adds. That's very particular to him, is what I'm trying to say, and that adds so much when you're starting off here. He has a great heel segment on top of that. Bandido does the I loved the surfboard spot, where Hechicero has him in a surfboard and he starts doing rolling surfboards with them, and I'm like, Jesus, this rules. But then Bandido fights out while staying in the in the leg lock position and gets Hechicero into a surfboard of his own. I'm like, this fucking rules already. This is really early on in the match. So we're having all of these moves to sort of break everyone down, to break each other down, so that when they start hitting big moves, like, the suplex, on the rail, on the edge of the rail, when that hits, that's tremendous. And then Bandido does, I think, the most beautiful crossbody dive from the top rope that I have seen in years. I'm trying to think back at when I have seen such a beautiful crossbody. He's on the top rope, does it to the floor, and he's the height, and the extension he gets, like everything, just gorgeous stuff, lands splat right on Hechicero, who catches him full. Just a thing of beauty, that move was, and they keep fighting like this on the floor. They get back in the ring. An incredible sequence of strikes follows between the both of them. Strikes, reversals, and holds that ends with a poison rana by Bandido. Now, soon after that, we get a moment where something happens and defines my issues that I have with Bandido. Oh boy. He's trying to set something up, and we're in the midst of this great momentum, right? You can feel we're heading towards the finish line of this match. And we just got out of the sequence I just talked about. The crowd's up on their feet. They're cheering, man. They are, the Philly crowd is excited. They're into it. And then we get to this moment here where Bandido he tries to do something, but with Hechicero, and I'm not quite sure what they were trying to do, but he tried to get something off and it flubbed. Something went wrong. He didn't get it off. And not that, like we like to say, time stood still, where both guys are just there, not knowing what to do. They try to transition into doing something else, but you can feel like it's awkward, it's out of sequence, and now they're just trying to feel each other out to do something. And I thought that made the energy drop quite a bit. And this is my main issue with Bandido. Because what I am seeing so much discussion out there right now when it comes to Bandido, so many people saying he is one of the best wrestlers on the planet. Like, he is one of the best wrestlers on the planet. He's one of the best wrestlers on the planet. And it seems to me, and I like Bandido, look, let's preface this again, because you always have to put up this fucking shield before you go anywhere further, any further. I love Bandido. I'm excited when I see Bandido matches, because I'm like, Bandido's on a fucking roll. He's great these days. Is he one of the best on the planet? Okay, depends on how far you want to stretch this. Because a lot of people, I still think it's Konosuke Takeshita as far as pure work. Like, let's say the most outstanding wrestler, let's say if we want to use Wrestling Observer talk, I think it's Konosuke Takeshita, and I think it's pretty definitive too on top of that. But people are saying like he's right up there with Takeshita, and I disagree. I don't think Bandido is as sound. I don't think Bandido is as consistent. And when Bandido has matches like this, has moments like we saw in the match, and I'm sure you guys felt it. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'm sure you felt it. There's no way you sat through that entire sequence at the end and you were like, oh yeah, everything just clicked till the very end. It's impossible that you didn't feel the energy drop from the match when Bandido sort of tripped over himself, or figuratively speaking. He didn't actually trip, but when that sequence didn't pan out, there's no way you were watching that and saying, oh no. Now you can say it really didn't affect my appreciation of the match, which is fine. Me, it kind of did, but not to the point where I'm like, it's not like it's not like a certain finish to a certain main event to a certain show that happened, in a certain city in a certain country called the UK. That was very convoluted for nothing. Forbidden Door 2025, the main event. It didn't take away that much, but it once again, I'm like, Bandido's going to Bandido. There's just like, and it happens, I feel like, in most of his matches where there's like, suddenly there's like, something just doesn't connect. And it's not like sloppiness. It's not that either. It's like we just lose the plot. There's like something just drops, and Bandido has to figure out how to reconnect with things. That, and me personally, I feel like there's a lot of I'm not a fan of the 21 plex. I'm not a fan of the 21 plex because I don't like the setup. Yeah, I don't like the requirements that are necessary from the opponent in order to get the 21 plex to work. You know, hanging on to the ropes, you know, and staying there, staying half, you know, basically, you know, hanging on to the ropes, bent forward for the time for Bandido to do his gun thing, run the ropes, come back, do the flippy do and the German, not the flippy, but the hop and the German. Like, it's a very convoluted finish, and I'm not a fan of it. I'm really not. And there's a lot of stuff that Bandido does typically in his matches. I found wasn't so bad here tonight, but there's a lot of stuff that he does requires a lot of setup and a lot of suspension of disbelief. And sometimes it drags the match down a little bit. Like, for instance, one that requires, but you know, like, there's a way to make things that require a setup, make them feel dramatic, okay? When he does the moonsault belly to belly, right? Or the flipping, the moonsault slam, right? You know what I'm talking about. He did it on Hechicero. You know, he has to go up on the top rope. And, you know, he's angling with the guy. And that creates drama. Then people in the audience stand up and, you know, we're putting our hands on our heads and like, oh, shit. And it's always like a big thing. And you know, in this case, Hechicero, you know, Hechicero's a thick dude. Bandido, not as much. Although we know he's strong, he's not as you know, you just visually speaking, you know, you're like, well, Hechicero's a big dude here. You know, he's considered a heavyweight in Lucha Libre. So, you know, he's a bigger dude. And yet, you know, so when he's on the rope and setting things up, that creates drama. That creates anticipation. You're like, oh, here it comes. The 21 plex is just like, all right. You know, the other guy's just there waiting for you to do it. Bandido, you know, just go fucking do it kind of thing. That's essentially it. And he didn't even win, right? He didn't even win with the 21 plex because Hechicero was blocking it because Hechicero's like, I'm not waiting here on the ropes for you to come do your goddamn finishing move on me. He's blocking it. He's doing shit, you know? So, so even Hechicero's figured it out. You know, everyone's figured it out. It's not a great finish. And so this all circles back. If I might be going off track a little bit, but you know, it just goes to properly explain my point here. That a lot of what Bandido is about has some lulls, has, you know, some flow breakers, I guess, and sometimes just outright flubs. Again, I think he's a tremendous pro wrestler, and I think he's on the run of his career right now. I really do. I think he is absolutely spectacular. He's doing things that he's doing things that I didn't think were possible in some circumstances, but also like he's getting crowd support, and the fact that people are going around, you know, saying he's one of the top wrestlers in the world right now, and so on and so forth. Look, that's tremendous. And I think he's a guy who is extremely talented and deserves accolades. And it's great that he's getting a push, and that in the midst of this push, he is seizing every opportunity to make him, to elevate himself. He is taking every opportunity to elevate himself. He's not letting a single match pass him by where he is not doing some cool shit, where he's not stringing together a great match. Look, these are two great back-to-back pay-per-view defenses of his world championship. I'm not bitching. It's fantastic. But again, like, I feel I'm a little counterculture when it comes to the appreciation of Bandido, where I don't think Bandido is as high level as people make him out to be. I legitimately think Konosuke Takeshita, like, because he's the comparison that everyone's bringing up, I think that Takeshita is a more consistent, solid, high-level, big match wrestler than Bandido is. Does that make sense? And look deep into your heart, you know it to be true. You know it to be true. And I think Hechicero is phenomenal. And I've been I've been a big fan of his for a while now, particularly once I started watching CMLL proper. I'm like, this guy absolutely rules. And then a lot of people in my circles were already like singing his praises, and I immediately understood it. I think he is an unsung. I think a lot of people like Hechicero quite a bit, but I don't think he gets the praise that should be given unto him, because here he is in a big time match and he is delivering. And not only delivering, but he's delivering an American style main event match. And that to me is significant too, because I've seen him in main events in Mexico, right? And lucha main events aren't exactly structured the same way. They don't go down the same way. It's something else. But I don't think we're talking enough about, in general, of how well Hechicero has adapted himself to the North American, or specifically the American match style, the American televised match style, as opposed to, what he'd do in CMLL, where there's always stuff that's a little more up in the air. I don't want to say sloppy, that's not the right thing, but a little looser. How about that? Where things are a little looser as far as structure goes and things you want to do and selling and whatnot. Hechicero has made a complete, functional and competent transition to American style TV wrestling that is actually kind of surprising, that a lot of guys, especially a lot of lucha guys, would have had in the past difficulty doing. See Sin Cara, for instance. It's outstanding. And look, again, I'm picking at straws here, but like people are calling this a match of the year. I like the Takeshita match better than this. But let's say I'll give this I'll give this 4.5 stars, and I'm comfortable with that, because I really do feel like the finish ran out of gas, and which leads me to say, well, I think they missed their peak. I think this match could have ended sooner, much sooner, and then I'd probably be much higher on it. But then again, look, I'm like, this is an excellent match. I'm not like trying to say this is, everyone's saying it's a 5-star match, I think it's 3.5. No, I just don't think it's a match of the year. I think Takeshita and Bandido is closer to a match. It is in fact a match of the year candidate. Like that to me is a top tier MOTYC. Absolutely. But in this circumstance here, this match here, while excellent, I don't think it's all the way up there. But boy, oh boy, did it rock the house. Was I thrilled to see this match? That was excellent. And it elevated the entire card. I thought, there's so much good that came out of it. I loved it. I absolutely fucking loved it. Loved the structure. And did I say Bandido wins? Yeah, yes, I did. I said that he didn't win with the 21 plex with just a German, because Hechicero had figured him out. Here's the thing. Can we, with Don Callis, you know how wrestling likes to hammer over your head something that was, funny one time, but then will continue to ram it home. That one time that Don Callis tried to speak Spanish, but his sentence structure was all fucked, intentionally, and then did the Hechicero thing and screamed it into the microphone and did the funny face. Now he's got to do that every time. He's got to do the face, right? You know what face I'm talking about. And he's got to pretend that he knows how to speak Spanish every time now. And maybe it was funny for a week or two, but now I'm like, now it makes me uncomfortable. Now I'm just like, okay. But, we're probably going to continue doing it because it's pro wrestling, and pro wrestling, has to hammer shit over your head. You just can't enjoy something and think it's a giggle. You got to bring that back every week. I don't know. Great match nonetheless. Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship was defended or won. Okay, here's what we're gonna do here. First of all, we're gonna go through the whole Sammy Guevara stuff for the evening because that was a through line for the entire pay-per-view, and we're gonna start by talking about the title situation now, because Dustin Rhodes, of course, as you know, is out with injury. He's gonna get surgery, and Ring of Honor never announced that they were stripping the trios titles, basically, and the tag team titles from Dustin and his partners. You know, he was trios champion with the Von Erichs and was tag team champion with Sammy. But they never said that the titles were going to be vacated until we started the fucking matches here today. Where it's like, or I think like Ian Riccoboni mentioned it like on Dynamite in passing, I think. Or there's somehow someone just said, oh yes, the title, he's been stripped of the titles. Was that okay? Like up until Thursday, because I did check before starting the stream, up until Thursday, Dustin was still champion on the Ring of Honor on its official website. He was still champion. So this was all, again, sort of put together very haphazardly. Not that I really give a shit. Not that it infinitely matters to me. But the match, essentially the matches were for the vacated trios titles and the tag team titles, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. But then again, goes to continue my point about Ring of Honor and etc. Anywho, let's move on. So again, we're gonna go through the Sammy Guevara timeline here in order, because I think it's important that we go in order here, because it has implications. Okay, because if you watch, you know what we're talking about, but I prefer to do it in this order here. During the pre-show, Sammy Guevara is outside, arriving at the building. Geez, he just about missed show call there with the Von Erichs. And they're talking about their trios match, of course. And then both of the Von Erich dudes are saying, well, listen, whoever you want between the both of us, Ross, Marshall, whoever you want for you to be your tag partner, it'll be cool. And Sammy's going, hey, don't worry, guys, I got this. We'll talk about it later. Let's focus on the trios match. So from this point on, as a seasoned viewer of professional wrestling, that this means that Sammy is not choosing Ross nor Marshall to be his partner for the tag team match later on. You absolutely see this coming because you've watched pro wrestling for more than 6 minutes and you're not a dummy. So you know exactly how this goes. That leads us to the first of these matches that Sammy had, which was for the trios titles, the 6-man tag team championship, I should say, where the Shane Taylor Promotions team of Shane Taylor, Sean Dean, and Carly Bravo defeated Sammy Guevara and the Von Erichs. So they become new championships. What did you think of the match, Warren? Well, let me pull up my notes here because I don't think I have very much. I thought this match worked because there was a lot of heat. The audience had turned on Sammy. They had nothing to do with Sammy Guevara. This was even before he started doing heel work on the show. They just completely turned on him. Saying Sammy sucks, you still suck. They had nothing to do with him. And he was a babyface here. He was a babyface with the Von Erichs, and STP were straight up heels. But they were getting huge reactions from the Philly crowd. We even had "fuck them Cowboys" chants, which I think was referring to the Dallas Cowboys as opposed to the Von Erichs being Cowboys. I would assume. There's a rivalry, right, between the Eagles and the Cowboys, right? Probably. I don't know. But I think that's probably where this all was coming from. But the heat was here for this match. It was tremendous. This really did help make this match better for what it was. Because I don't think the Von Erichs are that good. You know, I think Ross kind of sucks. I think Marshall may have something, but you know, these guys they're getting older, you know, and you know, Ross is almost 40, if I'm not mistaken. You know, Marshall's still in his early 30s, but you know, look, it's a what you see is what you get type of situation. They're fine, you know, they're okay. In fact, I don't think they're all that great. I don't think they're all that good. So, you know, it is what it is. It was a good enough match. Like, you know, 3.25 star, but you know, there's a lot of the heavy lifting here that came from the audience just for some reason wanted Sammy Guevara's head. And when SDP won, big reaction. And quite frankly, good because I think Shane Taylor, Sean Dean, Carly Bravo, I think these guys are very good. I think they make a great team. I think they make a great faction. I keep forgetting that Anthony Ogogo is a part of this group. And I see Anthony Ogogo there and it's like, okay, sure. Yes. You know, Trisha Dora, you know, a wrestler that I have always loved. You know, she's in there too. You've got Lee there. Like, this is a fucking great group. Why aren't we doing more with these, you know, with this group in Ring of Honor? And maybe we are, I just don't know. But, you know, I think it's well deserved. You know, Shane Taylor has been a rather solid backbone for Ring of Honor. I think he's been very good. And I like Sean Dean a lot, and I think he's finding himself. I think he really is finding his wrestling persona, his wrestling voice. He's becoming much more confident, much more assured of what he's supposed to be, and that'll be that. If he can knock that out of the park, he might be up for some bigger, better things than we expect. So that after that, well, later on in the evening, this is where we're at in our own breakdown here. We get Sammy Guevara, who was going to face the Outrunners, but with a mystery partner. And Sammy, you know, in the interview earlier with the Von Erichs had teased Chris Jericho. He said, well, you know, I need to break down some walls and find a partner. And then even the ECW arena people went, ooh, you know, it's like, oh, it's a Chris Jericho reference. And quite frankly, it would have been funny as hell. It would have really been funny as hell to have had Chris Jericho show up. It's a shame. Look, I'm happy that it was Roosh. Don't get me wrong. But as a content creator, having Chris Jericho show up and basically affirm that he ain't going anywhere. He's not going to the Royal Rumble in 2026. That's the kind of content that you want to see happen, so that you can, so then you have days upon days upon days of stuff to talk about. But maybe another time, maybe another occasion. It wasn't that so. Turns out that he was with Roosh, and this match was again just full of heat. Sammy full on heel with Roosh playing to the crowd. Like Sammy, I didn't realize how much of a great team this would be. Roosh and Sammy worked perfectly together as a couple of assholes, playing to the crowd, having these incredibly good heel moments, and just being overall bastards, soaking it in, playing to the crowd. It was masterful. It was so good. I couldn't believe it. And they're doing this against the Outrunners, you know, the perpetual underdogs of AEW, the guys that, you know, the audience really, really like and always get behind because they're likable, they're goofballs, you know, everything that makes the Outrunners what they are, the audience latches onto that. And they had themselves a good physical match with Sammy and Roosh being the perfect asshole team, riling up the crowd, and they win the title. They win the title. Roosh hits the horn of the bull. The bull, you get the horns. You mess with the bull, you get the horns finisher. I guess they're called the bull's horns, probably. He hits that, and Sammy does a swanton for the win. And they win the titles, and then Dralistico comes in, and he seems pissed, but it's a swerve because Sammy is now the newest member of LFI. I'm like, oh, okie dokie then. And it works for Sammy, and the funny thing is that, you got Roosh cutting a promo in Spanish, and Sammy's there, and he's going, yeah, because Sammy can't speak Spanish, which is really funny. Oh, and just before that, of course, the Von Erichs, come to the ring, and they're like, what the hell, Sammy? What did you do? Why'd you do this for? Again, it's one of these pro wrestling things where it's like, why didn't they do it in the first place? Why didn't they do it when Sammy came out? Why didn't they settle this business backstage? But, we know why. Because, then they all beat down on the Von Erichs after. Good beat down. It's a good angle. It was a nice little surprise. He's a member of LFI now. Good for Sammy. Now, there's a lot of people who are going, Sammy Guevara is back. Hang on now. Hold your horses, pals. It's still Sammy Guevara. Here's another guy that I kind of always feel was, a little overrated. I know he was supposed to be a part of these pillars, right? The pillars of AEW, and I always thought it was a little strange. When that whole discussion flared up, and I always thought that was a little strange. I think Sammy's a good wrestler. I think he's got. I think there's no other way to cast him than as a heel. He's too unlikable. Like he's just has that natural unlikableness. So, I know Tony, for some reason, pushed and tried so many times to get him over as a babyface, but people just want to shit on him. So I'm glad they're leaning into that. I think he looked good tonight. This is probably a guy who's kind of upset. He's got to be upset that he's been relegated to Ring of Honor when he feels like he should be on the main show. And I don't blame him. And I think that with the way he worked last night, it showed that he has something to prove. Now, again, Sammy is another guy at the same time who is older than you think. For some reason, people think Sammy Guevara is like 25 years old or whatnot. He's in his 30s. He's well in his 30s. He's another guy that is, that is what you see is what you get type of situation. And he's also a guy that I find has trouble, he doesn't string together the best matches either. He's a guy who's thinking about spots. He's a guy who he likes to do with spots. And again, I have nothing against spots, but you have to be able to fill in the spaces between the spots with a wrestling match. And sometimes Sammy struggles with that. So I don't think he's, such great shakes. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's a guy that is going to tear the house down every single time. I think like there's no one that I have ever heard say, watching Dynamite and Collision, I haven't heard anyone ever say, boy, we could really use more Sammy Guevara, and there's reasons for that. And a lot of them are Sammy's doing on top of that. But like no one says that because it's because Sammy's work is solid, it's good, but I think he focuses a lot on what can I do to get a big reaction from the crowd, as opposed to focusing on stringing a really solid wrestling match together. I think that's mostly always been his main issue. He's not a bad worker in the very least. I can never say that about Sammy Guevara, because I think that it's absolutely false, But look, again, what is required for Sammy Guevara to make it back onto Dynamite as a regular, for instance? I don't know what to tell you. I don't know, because what I'm seeing right now is the same fucking Sammy Guevara that was around, fighting Cody Rhodes back then and winning TNT titles. It's the same guy. I don't know what the overhaul should be or is needed. Like, he's still calling himself the Spanish God. He's still doing, it's still the same Sammy. I don't know. I was never all that enthralled with the old Sammy. I don't know why suddenly I should, why all of a sudden, because he has a really interesting heat-filled outing, that suddenly I'm like, oh yeah, I'm turning a corner here. I'll be anxious to see how this works out for him. Like, of course, if he's on Ring of Honor TV every week, I won't be seeing him. I'll have the pay-per-views to watch. But maybe this LFI association, since LFI, crosses the border, sorry for the terrible pun, but crosses the border between Ring of Honor and AEW very easily, well, maybe he will show up more on Dynamite. It could be. I wouldn't bemoan it. I wouldn't be like, yuck. I'm just like, as long as we don't overshoot what Sammy Guevara is capable of doing, I think that's fine. If we hang around and we say, good little mid-card act, and there you go. I think that's great. If it's tag team wrestler, there you go. Good for him. Good for him. Let's talk about the fight without honor, where QT Marshall defeated Paul Walter Hauser. Listen, this fucking thing was wild. And this is one of these matches, folks, and it happens. I'm human. This is one of these matches where I was sitting down and I had my arms crossed over my chest and I was ready to say, P.U. I hate this match. This stunk. Yuck. I was ready to do it, but I cannot. This match rocked. This was so much fun. And I did not expect it to go as hard as it did, because it wasn't just like your run-of-the-mill plunder match here. Look, if anything, you wanted your ECW tribute, there you go. There you go. We had the tax. We had the glass. We had blood. Paul Walter Hauser, Hollywood actor, does pro wrestling for shits and giggles, for the kicks, right? This fucking guy is a Marvel Cinematic Universe character, okay? He does not need to do this, but he decides to come into this ring and bleed. He decides to run the razor, and turns out he's a pretty good bleeder on top of that. We found something out about Paul Walter Hauser today. He's got a good little bleed going there. This is tremendous and cute. Look, you knew putting QT in this position, everything was going to go smoothly. Everything was going to go off without a hitch. Hauser had the perfect dance partner in this situation. Like, he really did. And QT knows how to work the crowd and whatnot. And then you had the run in from Hook also to take Aaron Solo away to make sure that it stays 1-on-1, which was random. It's like, what's Hook doing in Ring of Honor? But okay, it's fine. But we have tables. We've got the ladders on top of that. We've got the barbed wire weapons, right? We have Paul Walter Hauser doing a Death Valley driver. Not even like not a Death Valley driver, the flippy thing with the guy from the fireman's carry position off the apron through the table on the floor. And I'm sitting there going, no, don't do that. But he did. And then we have the spot with the tax, right? The where QT power bombs him, I believe, onto the tax. And something went wrong there. Something didn't go right. Because I think Hauser got the wind knocked out of him or something. There's something happened because Hauser started talking to the ref, and then, the camera angle closed in on QT. And that usually means, it happens sometimes they use it in kayfabe, but it didn't feel kayfabe here because even commentary wasn't selling it. But The camera angle closes in onto QT so that you don't see what's going on while the referee's checking on a guy that's potentially hurt. Something happened in that match. And I'm like, oh shit, did he get concussed? Is he hurt? Is he legitimately hurt? Did something happen? Maybe he just got, maybe the shock of the tax, landing through, immediately piercing his skin. Maybe that all, he just went, your body just goes into shock. Could have been so many things, honestly. I was like, oh, fuck. And then QT sort of says something to the ref and then pushes up his legs to go for the pin. And I'm like, oh shit, they're going to the finish like right now. But no, Hauser kicks out and like, okay, all right. A little weird, but at least Hauser looks okay. And he finished the match and he looked fine. And he even did the post-match presser and he looked fine as well. Listen, this was a blast of a match. This was so much fun. And the glass was real, I believe, because QT took some glass to the back and he was bleeding. So I'm like, all right, okay. So we really went all out here. This was preposterous. And why is Paul Walter Hauser doing this? Look, here's the thing. Paul Walter Hauser will never bring any fans to watch pro wrestling, okay? He can be in movies with Sydney Sweeney, and be recognized as a good comedic actor. He can do the Fantastic Four, but the Fantastic Four people are not following him to watch him do pro wrestling, and this goes for the same with MLW too, okay? So he's not going to draw people. All right. I think we just got to be realistic about this. But outside of that, I can absolutely respect this man for the love, the legitimate love that he has for pro wrestling. Like, this is not a guy just coming in to be tagged in, how this usually goes with with superstars, like mainstream stars coming in. They do a tag team match and they get the big hot tag and they do their moves and that's about it, right? You know what I'm talking about? This is a guy who loves pro wrestling. This is a guy who absolutely loves pro wrestling to the point where he's like, I want to do a hardcore match and yeah, I'm going to bleed for it. I want to do something fucking awesome here. And for that, I can't poo-poo this guy away. Like, his level of effort here was outstanding. He, even for a run-of-the-mill pro wrestler, I would have been impressed. But I'm doubly impressed because this is a Hollywood actor. This is a Hollywood actor who gets these big gigs, right? Isn't he in the Springsteen movie too? Like, he gets these huge gigs. And then he's like, what am I doing? What am I doing between shoots? Oh, gonna go get dropped on some glass. Gonna go use a razor blade against my forehead to simulate me bleeding, to give the impression that I was busted open during this match. Like, that's what he wants to do with his time off. I respect that. Like, you cannot not respect that as a fan. Like, and it's clearly more than just a paycheck that he comes to collect. And, it's like, like these fucking Travis Scott guys. I know it never amounted to anything, and that's even the worst part. Like, Travis Scott just wants to show up and, just do the thing and collect a paycheck and go home. That's all he wants to do. That's what most of them want to do. Is Paul Walter Hauser, come to think of it, is he like is he the top celebrity pro wrestler of all time? Like, a celebrity who hasn't turned to commit to it full time, who still has their celebrity gig, but then, comes in and does. I'm like, as I was thinking about putting my notes together, as I'm getting ready for this review, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I can't think of anyone else, you know? Lawrence Taylor? No, you know, that match blew. That was awful. You know, Jelly Roll? Apparently he was pretty good in the match. I can swear he wasn't as good. He very likely wasn't a quarter of as good as Hauser was, or gets committed, you know, not Rodman. You know, it's like, who, like, and even Andy Kaufman, right? God bless his soul. And you know, one of the greatest celebrity, you know, inclusions into pro wrestling, because he got the work so, like, he understood the work so much. You know, the matches were very bland. You know, it turns out like the matches he had were all like, they weren't very good. You know, I guess it'd be a toss up depending on how you want to look at it. If you want to talk about influence, if you want to talk about just like overall captivating and memorable, then Kaufman is absolutely, you know, he's still untouchable to this day. But as far as effort goes, investment, pure love of what's going on, it's got to be him. It's got to be him. And look, Paul Walter Hauser, a hardcore wrestler. I'm into it. If he wants to keep doing this, then good for him. But this was fun. I had no issues with this at all. This was a blast, and QT and he fist bumped after the match. It was tremendous. QT ended the match with an avalanche diamond cutter off of a table that was covered in glass. So there you go. Lee Moriarty successfully retained the Ring of Honor Pure Championship against Zelwa. Fantastic match. Like, from this, for me, this was like the point where, okay, now the card is picking up steam. But again, it was such a good progression. Like, nothing was going overboard. Like, it was such a good progression. This absolutely was fantastic. It was, I had so much fun watching this match. I thought Moriarty and Zelwa worked so incredibly well together, and they gave you like your classic Pure Rules template match, but it worked so well. You know, Zelwa is one of these very nascent up-and-comers in CMLL right now. He's a guy that everyone who watches CMLL is like, we got to keep an eye on this kid. We got to keep an eye on him. He could be on his way to bigger, better things. He's still stupid young as well. So, you know, and already really talented. And you got to see a glimpse of this in this match. And it's cool because there's a lot of people who were not familiar with him who ended the match and they were like, this Zelwa guy, not bad. And then they find out that he's like 20. Like, he's ridiculously young. He's got the whole fucking world ahead of him still. And CMLL is going to work to make this guy work out. And he's got, you know, the mask is good. He's got a good presentation, you know, and Lee was fantastic here. I think this is one of my favorite Lee Moriarty matches since he's had this championship. It was absolutely phenomenal. And some really impactful, energetic grappling with Lee, doing some joint manipulation on top of that. And he has to do some underhanded tactics to gain the upper hand as well. But ultimately, like, through his game plan, he forces Zelwa to use up all 3 of his rope breaks. And then he gets the Border City Stretch locked in for a second time. But this last time, Zelwa's out of rope breaks, and he goes for the ropes, but the referee can't release it. But Lee releases the hold, and then sort of grapples him standing through the ropes, pulling back on the ropes. Zelwa taps. It was a great finish. It was a fantastic finish. And you can even say, oh, well, Zelwa, you know, he was not used to the Pure Rules, so he fucked himself with the rope break situation. He put himself in this position. You could absolutely say that as the overarching story, that, you know, it's his inexperience bit him in the ass here. A fantastic one. Like, I gave this 3 3/4 stars. I thought it was so much fun. I gave 4 stars, by the way, to the to the hardcore to a hardcore wrestler Paul Walter Hauser. I thought it was a blast. What do you want from me? No, wait, I didn't give it 3. I gave it 3 3/4 stars as well. Sorry. I wasn't looking at the right rating. I gave it 3 3/4 stars. Blake Christian and Lee Johnson defeated the OGK, the original kingdom, original gangsta kingdom, original guys kingdom. Smacks a lot of the OGBC, doesn't it? Oh, the OGC, what was WWE calling the Good Brothers and AJ Styles for a while? The OG Club, the OGC, the OCs, the original club. It was the OCs, right? Yeah. Smacks a lot of that, if you ask me. This was well worked, strong match, a lot of fun, well put together. I don't have many notes. The Bennett and Taven worked really well here. We're clearly continuing the elevation of Blake Christian specifically, but Lee Johnson, man, he is looking sharp. Here's another guy. Like I was talking about Captain Sean Dean earlier. Our boy here, Lee Johnson, big shotty, man. He's finding his footing too. This is a guy that's very close to being the package. He is so close. This stuff is working out. I'm going to tell you, if we start getting dudes coming out of Ring of Honor like this, maybe the idea of it being developmental for AEW isn't such a bad idea. Because Lee Johnson's looking very, very good. This match was really good. I don't have many notes. There's a lot of inventive double team stuff from both teams, which was really good. And you could tell, Taven and Bennett, the old veterans, guiding through this match. They were completely in their element, top level wrestlers that just know what to do. It was a solid 3.5 star match, where you're having a good time. You're enjoying this. I have no complaints. And the team of Christian and Johnson, when they're called the Swirl now because of Vanilla Baby Christian, Blake Christian, the Swirl. Usually swirls are a little soft. I just want to put that on there. We also started the Ring of Honor Women's Pure Championship tournament. We had a quarterfinal match, the first of many. The participants in the tournament are going to be Queen Aminata, Taya Valkyrie, Deonna Purrazzo, Trish Adora, Billy Starks, Olympia from CMLL, Serena Deeb and Yuka Sakazaki. Those are going to be your participants in the tournament. This also probably ends all of this endless speculation regarding Deonna Purrazzo as well, because Tony gave a 17-minute answer as to why Deonna Purrazzo was not on TV. And I'm glad Tony, look, he took 17 minutes to explain why she wasn't around on Ring of Honor anymore, or on AEW. Where is she? What is she doing? And, I'm like, 17 minutes. Jesus Christ. It's not that big a deal. And it's just Deonna Purrazzo. And I'm glad Tony basically, gave an answer and said, look, she's going to be back. There's all sorts of issues. And then on top says, well, you know what? He didn't say that exactly. I'm paraphrasing, but he said, look, she went to CMLL and my partners weren't impressed with what she did. And so, I doghouse her for a while. And I think that he didn't say it that way, but that's what it meant. And that's all right. And she, I'm glad he put some clarity onto all of that, because this could have turned into another Ricky Starks, another Karrion Kross situation where everyone is latched on to this mid-carder, maybe more of a Karrion Kross situation than a Ricky Starks thing, but where everyone latches on to a mid-carder that has never really done anything, but somehow it becomes this huge story. And then people are like, weren't you using people turn this thing into a huge deal where it's like, well, this person hasn't done anything like to draw or hasn't been a cornerstone to anything in this promotion. Why are we so worried about what Karrion Kross is up to, what Deonna Purrazzo is up to, But look, it's all been nipped in the bud. Plus, she showed up. She's in the tournament. There we go. Everyone's happy. Everyone's happy. So the tournament began, ultimately. First quarterfinal match. Queen Aminata defeated Taya Valkyrie. I'll tell you what, whenever I think pure wrestling, I immediately think of Taya Valkyrie. It feels like it was supposed to be someone else in this spot. I'm sorry. It feels like it was supposed to be someone else and that person couldn't make the date or got injured or whatever the fuck. But why are you putting Taya Valkyrie in a pure wrestling tournament? Anyway, good win by Queen. This is what when I was looking at Queen here again, and I say this on the Dynamite reviews where I keep talking about how Aminata on Dynamite she's not the same as when she wrestles in DPW, in Deadlock, where she's just violent and mean-spirited and bitchy, And she everything feels a lot more free-flowing, a lot more loose. She feels more uptight, more streamlined, I guess. Uptight might not be the good word, but more streamlined on Dynamite, where she doesn't have as much luxury to do things and feel things out as she does on Deadlock Pro. And we kind of got that in this Ring of Honor match, where she felt a lot looser, creating the crowd connection. I'm like, yeah, more of this. This is the Aminata that I really like. And I like her fine on Dynamite, but she's like, on Dynamite, she's missing something. There's something from her presentation that what she does, something from her TV presentation that prohibits her or keeps her or bars her from being the Aminata from every other promotion she wrestles in, which is weird. I thought she was really, it was a good match. It was as good as a match you'll see from Taya Valkyrie in 2025. I'll tell you what. I even went as far as to give it 3.25 stars. I thought it was really interesting. And Aminata advances. Then we had the 6-man tag team championship match, which I already talked about. And the show opened up with Tomohiro Ishii and Hologram defeating the premier athletes, Ari Daivari and Tony Nese. My notes here said, good little collision match, fun final third, gave it 3 stars, that's fine. And then we had the pre-show, which I thought was extremely mid, and it did not give me much hope that the rest of the card was going to be good, because this was extremely mid. And even the match, which I thought was going to light up the place, Adam Priest, Angelico, Jolistico, and AR Fox, was very, it just happened kind of thing. I gave it 3 stars. Billy Starks defeat versus Ashley Vox, I gave it 2.25 star. Billy Starks, of course, wins. And then we had the MXM collection versus the Frat House versus the Dark Order in a 3-way match. That was another 2.25 star match for me. They didn't do anything for me. MXM collection are doing they're doing a Scent of Arrogance thing. They're doing the Rick Martel gimmick where they have perfume that they're going to shoot in people's eyes. That's something. And Jordan Oliver versus Jay Lethal, which I thought was going to be better. I gave it 3 stars. Honest effort. But Jay Lethal, not Jay Lethal, but Jordan Oliver has really improved. Like he really went from a guy that on the indies years ago just attracted derision from a lot of people, and he committed nonetheless. He's like, no, I'm going to make this thing work, and I'm going to become someone, right? And I think he's figured out a lot of elements to his presentation. I think he still needs some work. It's not a finished product, but I can appreciate that 2025 Jordan Oliver is a much better pro wrestler than 2019 Jordan Oliver, which should be the case, quite frankly. And it's cool that he, Tony, this is like what, his second Ring of Honor booking? So clearly Tony has taken a shine to him. He's like, okay, let's have him back. He loses to Lethal in this one, and they're setting up a feud between Lethal and Blake Christian because they had a little backstage confrontation, and Jay Lethal was watching the Blake Christian Lee Johnson match with the Kingdom. He was watching that on the screen backstage, and in full, 3/4 position, the awkward position that WWE always had their wrestlers watching TV, was doing it. Like, groan. But back to Jordan Oliver though, really quickly. Look, I know it's different to wrestle in front of a camera versus anywhere else. So, I think he still has to find his footing in that regard. But look, Caprice was putting over the fact this kid has the it factor. He has it. I'm like, really? I don't know. I don't know if he has the it factor, but he has a factor. And I think he's worked hard for it. And I think he's finally got the hair figured out. I think finally Jordan Oliver has figured out a good haircut for himself. That could take a while. I think he looks good. I think it was good. But he had, a perfectly fine match with Jay Lethal, the 3-star special, and that's all really that you can ask for. So there you go. Ring of Honor, Death Before Dishonor. Again, I thought a really good show. Lots of really good stuff. Might be a promotion that no one watches. might be a promotion that you only hear about in passing. But when it's time for the pay-per-views, and they deliver. This is another indicator here. Like, every time there's a Ring of Honor pay-per-view, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going to lock in. I'm going to watch it, because Ring of Honor pay-per-views usually are really, really good. And we can sit around and we can bitch about there's no build. Oh, everything was put together within 24 hours. Who cares? Who cares when ultimately you sit down and you watch it and you're entertained? The thing is that if it was better built and and it had more buzz around it, then maybe they'd make more sales overall. They'd get more people tuning into the Honor Club and whatnot. But that's not the case. We really have a situation where the snake is eating its tail, where ultimately it's like, there's no one watching Honor Club. There's no one watching Honor Club. So there's no point in really making a huge push for your pay-per-views, but your pay-per-views are always good, so people watch them, but it doesn't convert to people subscribing, or maybe it does. We just don't know the numbers. But I can promise you one thing. If the subscriber numbers were really high, if there were lots of people joining Honor Club and sticking around after pay-per-views or on the lead up to pay-per-views, you can rest assured that Tony Khan would be crowing about it. He'd be saying like 150,000 new subscribers in the past 30 days or whatever the fuck, he would be saying that, but he's not. And no one ever talks about those numbers because no one wants to share those numbers because they're probably embarrassing. But yeah, ultimately, outside of all of those business aspects, the pay-per-views usually deliver. And this is this was a really good to great pay-per-view. I enjoyed myself. I had a great time watching this card from top to bottom. Some criticism, some quibbles and whatnot, but nothing that'll make me say, no, you know what, this show can hit the bricks. No. And if you want to watch it, entirely skip the pre-show and dive right into the show itself. Otherwise, I think from the if you're really pressed for time, the pure title on, you're completely fine. You're gonna have if that's all you watch from the pure title onward, you're gonna have a tremendous time watching some pro wrestling. That would be my recommendation if you're pressed for time. Otherwise, watch the whole thing. It was really good. Ring of Honor, Death Before Dishonor, 2025.